So, hello, welcome back to another episode of the Self-Dwelling with Tactics podcast. Today, we're going to go through 18 wealth lessons from the Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, Housel, as a book summary by the SLOWW.com, as far as I remember, site. While we are going through this, I think that the quote-unquote relationship, which I think is a pretty bad term to use in this sense, with money is a pretty incredibly important one, since money, unfortunately, is a driving force in this world. It is something that we just can't get around. It is what it is. You just can be unhappy about that. You can be happy about that. Whatever. You can't change it. It is just what it is. Money as a system, as a thing that people made up, essentially, it is just running the fucking world. As I said, you can be unhappy about that. It is not. So we should probably be pretty good with money and also understand it and use it in a way that is serving us rather than letting it control us to some degree. I think it is very important to know these things. I think it is very important to at least think about these topics and think about those systems, those aspects of life. Since, as I said, it is a pretty big aspect of our life and everyone's life. We all have to deal with money. We all have to deal with making money or earning money, as well as with spending money and hopefully also saving and or investing money as well. So this is a book summary of the psychology of money, timeless lessons on wealth, greed, and happiness by Morgan Housel. I couldn't ignore the psychology of money any longer. It seems like everyone is talking about it in my little corner of Twitter. Many are calling it their top book of the year. And Amazon supports the hype. The book launched in September 2020. I didn't know about that. I thought it is actually a pretty old one. And already has over 2,500 ratings. Which actually doesn't say anything, because it could also be 2,500 negative ratings. Well, just 1-star ratings, who knows? But I assume that they are all quite good. So there's a few things that we're going to go through, and there's also, because I had a look at the whole thing before, a little summary of everything that we're going to go through. I am going to go through that summary of the summary, because I guess that it is a pretty good preface for the big summary, the detailed summary, so that one knows what the whole thing is going to be about, and I know what the whole thing is going to be about, so that I somehow can, prepare myself for it. So the first one is, no one's crazy. Then luck and risk, never enough. Confounding, compounding, getting wealthy versus staying wealthy, tails, you win, freedom, man in the car paradox, wealth is what you don't see, save money, reasonable over rational, surprise, room for error, you will change, nothing's free, you and me, the seduction of pessimism, and the last one, the 18th one, is when you'll believe anything. 18 Wealth Lessons from the Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel book summary. And this is a little summary of the summary that I was talking about before. I'm sorry, actually, by the SLOWW.co site. It's not .com, it's .co. Financial success, and this is a quote, by the way, is not a hard science. It is a soft skill where how you behave is more important than what you know. I call this soft skill the psychology of money. And I think in the end, the way you think about things, the way you see the world, the way your brain works, essentially, on an emotional level, is really going to change reality for you. No matter what it is about, whether it is about work, earning money, whether it's about sports, whether it is about nutrition, whatever it might be, this is always going to be very, very, very important. How you see things, your attitude towards things, how you perceive the world. This is, it is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing in life, Something good all of a sudden becomes something bad, and also vice versa, just by changing the way you think about it, just by changing the way you see things. It is incredibly important to think about the psychology and think about all the soft skills that are there. And also empathy, for example, I think is is very, very, very important. I'm gonna zoom in a little tiny bit so that you can hopefully see it a bit better. I should be. No one's crazy. Your personal experience with money make up maybe 0.0000000 kind of 1% of what has happened in the world, but maybe 80% of how you think the world works. So that's the first one. Luck and risk. Luck and risk are both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. Yes, it is what it is. No matter how good you are, sometimes we just have bad luck. It is what it is. Maybe, of course, you can mitigate the risk that you might be having by training a lot. For example, when we talk about a sports event, of course, when you train a lot, when you work out a lot, when you prepare yourself very, very well for whatever is coming up, for whatever it is all about, then of course you're going to mitigate the risks. Of course, you're going to lower the chance that something unlucky is going to happen. Really, just the case, period. But sometimes there is a chance, and there is always a chance, that just something bad happens. And one just can't do anything about that. It is what it is. Never enough. Life isn't any fun without a sense of enough. Happiness, as it's said, is just results minus expectations. Compounding is if something compounds, a small starting base can lead to results so extraordinary they seem to defy logic. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. There's only one way to stay wealthy, some combination of frugality and paranoia. Tails you win, long tails, the farthest end of a distribution of outcomes, have tremendous influence. A small number of events account for the majority of outcomes. Yes, I don't know if you know this graph, but for example, a very small amount of items on Amazon, for example, make up the majority of the sales. Whatever it might be, I don't know. I don't know the data. It would actually be quite interesting. But there is, I could just show you what I mean. The long tail. It's actually a very interesting concept, I would say. So that is apparently with influencers. Okay, I see. So you have the head, which is the part in the beginning, and then you also have the long tail. So as you can see, and for all the podcast listeners, we have a graph on the left side is, so the vertical line is popularity / price, and the horizontal line is influences. And in between, we're having a, is it a logarithmic graph? I actually do not know anymore. The long tail model. So on the head, which is the very left part, which is the highest one, there we have celebrities and macro influencers. So a relatively small amount of people do have the majority of the popularity / the price. Then we have the mid-tier influencers, which is the first part of the long tail. They do make up, apparently, I would say maybe even a quarter of the popularity / price. Then we have the micro influencers, who are very, 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 very many people. And they make up just a tiny, small amount of the whole popularity and the whole price. So this is the concept of the long tail. And where am I? Freedom. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, is priceless. It is the highest dividend money pays. Man in the car paradox. No one is impressed with your possessions as much as you. Period. Wealth is what you don't see. Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. And it is also one of the dumbest things to do, because why? It just pretty much begins in the very first stage and in the very first thing that I said just before, which is the way you see the world, the way your psychology works, the way your values are distributed. This is really the reason why you're just willing to show off, maybe because of insecurities, maybe because of childhood trauma. Like the reasons, so the underlying reason for me is now not important. Of course, for you it is, but the way it shows quite is. So in the end, your psychology and the way you see things, the way things work in your head is very important. It's gonna really result in a lot of good if everything is quote unquote well. It depends on how you see things. And it can really, really, really lead to quite a lot of damage if things are not working as they maybe even should be working. Save money. Less ego, more wealth. Saving money is the gap between your ego and your income, and wealth is what you don't see. Reasonable over rational. But do not aim to be coldly rational when making financial decisions. Aim to just be pretty reasonable. Period. Surprise. The correct lesson to learn from surprises is that the world is surprising. Room for error. The only effective way to safely navigate a world that is governed by odds, not certainties. Yes. Backup plans, backup buckets, whatever you want to call them. But no matter what, there is a chance that things can go wrong. And of course, it makes sense to plan in those errors and make sure that they are not going to be detrimental and they're not going to pretty much destroy the whole process, which I think also comes back to being reasonable, just not over. I actually really like that, like not being overly rational. If this is even something that we can be, like this is a thought in itself or of itself, because we are so irrational, we are so emotionally driven. So just at least being reasonable, and making sense of things, I guess, is a pretty great way to approach things in life. You will change. Long-term planning is harder than it seems because people's goals and desires change over time. It is what it is, and it is probably going to happen for you as well, no matter what. Nothing's free. Like everything else worthwhile, successful investing demands a price: volatility, fear, doubt, uncertainty, and also regret. You and me. Beware taking financial cues from people playing a different game than you are. The seduction of pessimism. Optimism sounds like a sales pitch. Pessimism sounds like someone trying to help you. When you'll believe anything, stories are the most powerful force in the economy. So storytelling might actually be one of the most important. Well, I don't know. This is the reason why I said might be, because I'm not sure about that, because I haven't made my mind up yet, but because I'm reading it. Storytelling might actually be one of the most important skills you can have. By going through, different situations that you might be encountering in life, for example, a job interview, storytelling might come in handy. If you're selling something, obviously, storytelling might come in handy. But there might just also be some ways or some situations that you might be finding yourself in that are not necessarily going to make things better when you know how to storytell very well. Anyway, overview of the psychology of money. The premise of this book is that doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. Which I think this per se is a very, very, very obvious sentence. And actually it ties really neatly into something that I've been talking very recently quite a bunch about, which is action over motivation / anything else. Action is driving change. Period. Nothing else. Maybe something leads to that action. Motivation might lead to the action, but motivation per se is not going to change anything. In the end, it is for sure 100% going to be about action, no matter what. No matter what it is all about, it is action that changes things. And so, when you're really smart and whatnot, but still behave in a dumb way, things are just not going to be good for you. Your money game is not going to be good. Period. No matter what. But on the other hand, if you're able to behave well in terms of money, so your money behavior is great, then you're going to have good results. Because it is the action that counts. It is what you do that counts. It's what I do that counts. Of course, one can really be depressed and whatnot, but in the end, it is about actions. Period. Anyway, financial success is not a hard science. It is a soft skill where how you behave is more important than what you know. I call this soft skill the psychology of money. The aim of this book is to use short stories to convince you that soft skills are more important than the technical side of money. We think about and are thought about or taught money in ways that are too much like physics with rules and laws and not enough like psychology with emotions and nuance. Physics isn't controversial, it is guided by laws. Finance is different, it's guided by people's behaviors. As it really is the case, when you think about stocks, um, prices are gonna rise. As far as I know, like I'm not a financial expert, I'm not giving you any financial advice, but the more people buy something, the more expensive it is gonna be. Demand and price. There's a correlation and whatnot. The first one, no one's crazy. Your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.00001% of what's happened in the world, but maybe 80% of how you think the world works. Every decision people make with money is justified by taking the information they have at the moment, and plugging it into their unique mental model of how the world works. People do some crazy things with money, but no one is crazy. Here's the thing, people from different generations, raised by different parents who earned different incomes and held different values in different parts of the world, born into different economies, experiencing a different job market with different incentives and different degrees of luck, learn very different lessons. In theory, people should make investment decisions based on their goals and their characteristics of the investment options available to them at the time. But that is not what people do. The economics found that people's lifetime investment decisions are heavily anchored to the experience those investors had in their own generation, especially experiences early in their adult life. Their view of money was formed in different worlds, and when that is the case, a view about money that one group of people thinks is outrageous can make perfect sense to another. As it is with, I would argue, all the values that we might be having as people. Some really value doing sports and being active, and for some other people, this is just outrageous. Few people make financial decisions purely with a spreadsheet. They make them at the dinner table or in a company meeting, places where personal history, your own unique view of the world, ego, pride, marketing, and odd incentives are scrambled together into a narrative that works for you. At least it kind of works in your head, maybe. Luck and risk. Luck and risk are both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. They're so similar that you can't believe in one without equally respecting the other. They both happen because the world is too complex to allow 100% of your actions to dictate 100% of the outcomes. They are driven by the same thing. You are one person in a game with 7 billion other people, hence infinite moving parts. The accidental impact of actions outside of your control can be more consequential than the ones you consciously take. The line between inspiringly bold and foolishly reckless can be a millimeter thick and only visible with hindsight. Risk and luck are doppelgangers. Be careful who you praise and admire. Be careful who you look down upon and wish to avoid becoming. Or just be careful when assuming that 100% of outcomes can be attributed to effort and decisions. It's not going to be the case. There's just going to be a certain percentage of things that we cannot control that actually, indeed, as the author also pointed out before, make up, quite a lot of the whole outcome. Therefore, focus less on specific individuals and case studies and more on broad patterns. Go out of your way to find humility when things are going right and forgiveness/compassion when they go wrong, because it's never as good as bad as good or as bad, as it looks. You should like risk because it pays off over time, but you should be paranoid of ruinous risk because it prevents you from taking future risks that will pay off over time. One could say just being smart about things, which is something that I often say, but I don't know if it is the right way to use. What I'm referring to is, for example, when you're making an investment, maybe you should not put all your money into this one thing. Maybe you should be diversifying things, to mitigate risks. Because as he said, ruinous risks that can ruin you, they are not great, they're not cool, and it's not great to take them. Sometimes they work out and sometimes they really, really fail tremendously. But yeah, I think that I'm going to end the episode there. The next time we're going to go through Never Enough, and I'm going to see you the next time. So